Hello and welcome to Notre Dame Day, the annual 29-hour celebration of all things Notre Dame. I'm Jack Nolan, and many of you may know me as the play-by-play announcer for Notre Dame men's basketball. I've always enjoyed my time here at the university, and I'm delighted to be here today to help celebrate Notre Dame Day. We are coming to you live from the Grosjean Family Loft and Duncan Student Center attached to the legendary Notre Dame Stadium. So far in our broadcast, we've told stories of students, alumni, faculty, and friends from all over the world, and we have many more to come in this hour. And I'm happy to be joined by Justine Ward, a Notre Dame graduate. Justine, it is great to see you.
Jack, it is so great to be here. It's always wonderful to come back to my home at Notre Dame. I'm so happy to be a part of this incredible event once again. So far, the show has been extraordinary, and I know the best is yet to come. This hour is going to be action-packed, but we also want to let you know about several special segments coming up later in the show. During our 7 o'clock hour, we'll see a performance that captures the true essence of the Fighting Irish. It's world-famous Celtic singer Chloe Agnew will perform live from the Leighton Concert Hall at the DeBartolo Performing Arts Center. And during the 8 o'clock hour, the stars of the Chicago cast of the Broadway masterpiece Hamilton will appear in the Leighton Concert Hall as well. Both performances will be wonderful. And if you'd like to come to watch in person, free tickets are being distributed at the DeBartolo Performing Arts Center right now. So you better hurry. Those tickets are going to go fast, Jack.
Incredible. A chance to see part of Hamilton and see it for free. Now, tonight at 9, we'll be live on the field at Notre Dame Stadium to crown the champions of the men's and women's Fighting Irish 40 as students compete in a 40-yard dash to see who is the fastest on campus. Some students will even take on the football team's fastest players.
I can't wait to watch that. Second year for that event. It was great last year. And we're going to wish our students the best of luck. I know all of our viewers will enjoy those upcoming segments, but what really impresses me about Notre Dame Day is how it brings together some of the university's best and brightest to showcase their stories and talents. This isn't my first Notre Dame Day, but I'm still amazed at the magnitude of this event.
I couldn't agree more, Justine. Organizing 29 straight hours of Notre Dame stories is a feat in and of itself, but Notre Dame Day is about much more than simply telling these compelling tales. What is most impressive about this event is that you, the viewers, are going to help us give away more than $1 million to 900 Notre Dame student organizations, academic units, and athletic teams through your votes. Now, let me explain. By making a gift to the university, you will earn votes that you can give to any of the 900 entities on campus. The more votes each organization receives, the larger the percentage of the money they will earn at the end of Notre Dame Day.
Giving away a lot of money. That is right, Jack. And it's so easy to participate. All you have to do is click on the Vote Here button you see on your computer screen, and you can help your favorite Notre Dame Day organizations get their share of the money. So those of you watching on Facebook Live can participate too. You just go to NotreDameDay.nd.edu to vote. 5 donors were kind enough to provide the money for Notre Dame, so we certainly want to thank them for their kindness and generosity. And as the day unfolds, we'll provide you with regular updates on the voting results, so start voting now.
I know I give every year, and I vote in my self-interest. I give it to Fighting Irish Media, the folks that produce all that great sports programming you see on Watch ND, the coaches' shows, and all the other great storytelling on that side of campus. Now, let's look at the stories we have this hour coming up. We're speaking with a Notre Dame alumna who is a part of the Silence Breakers, a group of women who were collectively named the Person of the Year by Time magazine, and with another alumna who at the age of 27 adopted a young Rwandan boy. We'll sit down with the executive director of the Notre Dame Alumni Association and with the university's vice president of career and professional development. We have some Notre Dame athletic segments on deck, too. We'll talk to Notre Dame's head golf coach, John Handrigan, the men's lacrosse coach, Kevin Corrigan, the executive director of the Notre Dame Monogram Club, and a former big leaguer who has deep ties to the university. But before we get started, let's check in at the Social Media Center for a voting update.
Hey, thanks so much. And thanks to you, Jack and Justine. You've been with us since year 1. We're here in year 5 of Notre Dame Day. We would not be where we are, the largest event of its kind in higher education, without the both of you. So thanks so much. And thanks to all of you watching. We've crossed the 19,000 gift mark. You remember last year we had about 26,000 gifts total. So we are well on our way to another record year. And that's thanks to all of you out there who have made that $10 gift and cast your 5 votes for the areas at Notre Dame that mean the most to you. They mentioned we're going to have Dolly Duff, the executive director of the Alumni Association, on this hour. It's worth mentioning again how tight the club race is this year, not just on the main leaderboard, but across most of our 1842 categories as well. Here's the main club leaderboard. You could see Cincinnati still out front with 451 votes, but Central Illinois keeps just climbing up a little bit closer every hour. They have 350 votes. This is $6,000 to their scholarship fund. You can talk to groups like Cincinnati that have brought in tens of thousands of dollars over the years. It really does add up to such a meaningful difference for local students in their community. Indy Club of Stewart, Florida, the little club that could, is still hanging in there in the third spot. But Central New York, they're one of the real dark horses this year. They've had such a tremendous push where they're at. They're holding tight in that fourth spot, followed by our senior alumni group, Jersey Shore, Northeastern New York. Eastern North Carolina was doing great in their category, as was Lake County. So check out the leaderboards online. It's going to be close all throughout the afternoon, especially for that 1842 challenge by club category. What a day so far. I'm back here with Sarah Casson. Sarah, what an amazing year in year 5. And this amazing Duncan Student Center is just the perfect home for Notre Dame Day.
Of course, this is the first time we've done the broadcast live from the new Duncan Student Center, and I don't think it's an exaggeration at all to say it's an extraordinary facility. It's on the west side of the Notre Dame Stadium, and of course at the noon hour on a beautiful day, it is just full of students. They're here to eat,
It's
they're
busy.
here to study, doing all kinds of activities.
That's right. There's the beautiful fitness facility here. All of career development here. We're going to hear from Ryan Willerton very soon. We have one of the most beautiful career development offices in the country now for employers to come in. Lots more to come here on Notre Dame Day. Stay tuned to those leaderboards. For now, let's send things back upstairs.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, our next guest genuinely puts the Irish in Fighting Irish. Declan Kiberd is the Donald and Marilyn Keough Professor of Irish Studies and the Keough Naughton Institute for Irish Studies, as well as a professor of English here at Notre Dame. He's a leading international authority on the literature of Ireland, and he's joining us all the way from Galway, Ireland, via the Notre Dame Day hotline. Declan, thank you so much for joining us.
It's very nice to be on the program.
What has you in Ireland right now?
Well, I'm always in Ireland in the springtime of the year. I teach my courses in ND in the fall in South Bend, but in the spring semester I teach a course on modern Irish literature from Yeats right up to the present in O'Connell House, which is the ND Gateway in Dublin. And ordinarily I would be in Dublin doing that, but I'm at a festival of literature called Court here in Galway for these 2 days. Court is the old Gaelic word for court, and in Gaelic Ireland there were courts of poetry which met every so often, and we have not just poets but all kinds of writers here in Galway this week.
Oh, fabulous. And before coming to Notre Dame, you were a longtime faculty member at the University College in Dublin. So what drew you to Notre Dame?
Well, I was over 30 years in UCD, as we call it, Joyce's old university, and I was a professor of English there, of Anglo-Irish literature, the Irish writers in the English language. It was brilliant. I had wonderful students, and you can see that from the time I spent, the length of time. But I've always been interested in the Irish language as well, and before I went to UCD, I had lectured in Irish in Trinity. The great attraction of ND was that you could combine both without feeling one had to choose one over the other. The Irish studies at ND combined both Irish and English languages. So as I liked to say, I became amphibious when I went to Indiana.
The switch hitter, so to speak. So you also split your time, as you mentioned, between the South Bend campus and Notre Dame's O'Connell House in Dublin. So how would you say that spending a decent amount of time in two culturally different atmospheres affects your approach to teaching?
Well, the undergraduate teaching here in Dublin, which, as you know, I did for many years, is a bit more lecture-driven, hierarchical, students taking notes. I was very struck as soon as I arrived in ND by, well, one thing was the greater frequency of classes. You meet students at least twice a week, but also you get to know them very well, and it's more like a seminar-type debate. So that was good for me because there was more toing and froing. I mean, we Irish are supposed to have the gift of the gab, but we are also monologists. We have very strong transmitters and sometimes weaker receivers, and this is particularly true of professors, of course. As you know, in Ireland we used to say a professor is a person, usually male, who talks in other people's sleep. So it was very good for me to have a more conversational style of classroom, and that was one big difference. I think the other big difference is at postgrad level. in the length of seminars. You know, some of the seminars I have in ND in South Bend would last up to 3 hours. And I don't think there's a student in Western Europe, even a bright graduate student, who could last in a room for more than 2. This is real marathon running in ND.
That's interesting. How do you think your time in South Bend informs your perspective on current events happening in Ireland across the pond?
Well, I'm very struck by the similarity of some of the social difficulties. I mean, obviously, Indiana more generally is part of what was called flyover territory after the last election. And I suppose there's a sense in many parts of the U.S. that some of the great cities are flourishing at the expense of rural communities. And although Ireland has recovered from the recent crash to some degree, I think it would also be true to say here that Dublin is in recovery mode, but many parts of regional and rural Ireland are still a bit shut down. So I'm very aware of these similarities. This would also be true of parts of England north of Watford, north of London. So there's an amazing similarity in a way in the frustrations, especially among not just rural communities, but more specifically young males in the rural communities, who I think often feel a bit despondent about the future. And quite a number of recent works of Irish literature have in fact focused on this theme. Play by Sebastian Barry, who's one of the speakers at this festival here in Galway, called Chronicles of Ballycumber, was about the instance of suicide among younger males in the rural community.
And you have your own book coming out, Professor.
Well, yes, my book, After Ireland, is about, in a way, these crises and about the way in which Irish writers predicted many of these emergencies. Basically, my argument is that literature is an early warning system, so that, say, the problems of child abuse that emerged in journalistic reports in the last 20 years here in Ireland, I show how these were, in a way, predicted in the plays of Samuel Beckett or novels by John McGahern. And in the same way, you can argue that the economic crash of 07 and 08, which in Ireland was heavily connected with kind of mad speculation in building and selling houses to one another, there are plays back as far as the 1970s and 80s by playwrights like Brian Friel and Tom Murphy, which predicted this and even made links between speculative builders and Chicago-style gangsters. So, in a sense, although these things surprised us when they emerged in journalism in the last decade or two, you can excavate them very, very far back in the modern literature of Ireland.
Interesting indeed. Thank you so much, Professor Kuipert. Thank you for speaking with us. We're going to take a quick break, but Notre Dame Day will be right back after this.
I am the first
in my family
to go to college.
But not just any college.
I'm going to Notre Dame.
I grew up the son of a carpenter and a high school teacher.
Until I was about 8 years old, I was sleeping on a couch in our living room.
College was not an option financially for any of us.
I was actually on Notre Dame's campus, and I'd been speaking to a financial aid counselor.
And he told me that I just had to worry about the cost of transportation.
And I literally screamed.
My voice broke and I was overwhelmed. I couldn't actually believe it.
I called my mom and I told her, you don't have to pay anything.
If my donor was standing right here,
I'd give him a big hug, tell him,
I'm here because of you.
The opportunity to attend Notre Dame has been the greatest gift of my life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. I'm Jack Nolan. With us now on Notre Dame Day is Ryan Willerton, a man who plays a critical role in the professional development of Notre Dame students. Ryan leads Notre Dame's Center for Career Development, where he works with undergraduate and graduate career services, coaching teams, and an employer engagement team to create strategies for the career discernment and development of Notre Dame students. Ryan, thanks for being with us. And then one of the things you're doing right now is you're rebranding the Career Center. What does that involve?
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. Well, first of all, it's great to be here on Notre Dame Day. And when we talk about a rebranding, it's really a repositioning. So we've always had a very strong undergraduate career center. And within the last few years, we really developed this graduate career services model where we have dedicated consultants, as we refer to them, who work with each of our different colleges, engineering, arts and letters, sciences. So not only helping the undergrads, but also helping our graduate students. And what's really good about this repositioning is moving to this beautiful new building, state-of-the-art facility. We also are able now to partner with our Mendoza grad business students in their career services operation.
And you also mentioned to me you have such great facilities here. If there are alumni who are on campus or in the area doing business and they just need a place to park, make some phone calls, do some work, you can provide them with that space.
Absolutely. So in the past, we were on the first and second floors of Flanner Hall. So it was a residence hall. A lot of folks didn't know where our office was. But now being in Duncan Student Center on the entire 5th floor, so our office spans and all of our conference rooms span 100 yards, the length of the football field. Anytime we have an alumni in town or a recruiter or even a parent who's visiting their student and they just need a quiet place to do some work, they want to make a couple phone calls, check their email, they're more than happy to stop by one of our 2 reception desks on 5.
Now, certainly you, of course, have moved over here as well, and I've been told you got a pretty special office.
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
Office is pretty unreal. So the views from the 5th floor are pretty remarkable. And it's pretty interesting in the afternoons, particularly on Saturdays and Sundays when we have quite a few visitors on campus, a lot of prospective students. Some of the most picturesque campus pictures that you can take are on that 5th floor, overlooking the dome, the basilica, and the library.
Now, most students start to think about their careers as soon as they get on campus. Very competitive. A lot of them worry about it. What programs do you have for that first-year student and then right through all of the classes to get them ready to be successful, both finding a job and being successful at that job?
That's exactly right, Jack. And that's one of the reasons we really rebranded and repositioned to say it's not just a career center, but it's a center for career development. And that development does start first year. Everything from the 2 weeks that we dedicate with our Moreau first-year experience class, all the way to workshops, individual counseling appointments, really starting first with those VIPS or the VIPs, the values, interests, personalities, and skills. That lays the foundation for what opportunities a student could be provided.
What is the biggest hurdle that a student has to jump over when they're interviewing for that first job? I know my office is still in the North Dome of the Joyce Center, and they have always had the job fairs in there, and I see all the students march in and how nervous they are and how intimidating that experience is. What makes for a successful student job interview?
It's comfort. It all comes down to comfort, and that's one of the beautiful things that we have on the 5th floor. It's one of the most popular and also somewhat secretive study spaces on campus. In addition to all the conference rooms and interview rooms, we also have some comfortable lounge seating. So the more we can get students up on the 5th floor to just get comfortable with the space. So the first time that they're meeting an employer, recruiter, or alum isn't the first time they're coming into that facility, but also it's having conversations with alums and getting them connected through networking so they can ask the questions. They can learn about a company's culture. So when they move into that interview phase, they're fully prepared.
We have 20 seconds left, but if you're at Notre Dame, you got to talk about the Notre Dame network, which is as strong as any network I've ever been around. How do you help the graduate when they're out there, maybe 5 years removed, trying to make that next step?
Absolutely. So what we do is we have a platform called Irish Compass. It's a partnership with Notre Dame Alumni Association, our Center for Career Development. Think of it as a private LinkedIn where you can create mentorships and networking opportunities.
All right. Can't thank you enough, Ryan. Great interview.
Thanks, Jack.
Appreciate it. Good luck.
Appreciate it, friend.
All right, it has been great to hear about all the efforts here at Notre Dame to help students. We now want to go, though, join the guy I'm calling our marathon man, Joe Theismann, who is beginning a 12-hour shift right now. He is down at the Hiller family midfield set with a Notre Dame grandfather who has a history in the major leagues. Joe?
Jack, thanks so much. I guess today's the beginning of my marathon. I'm looking forward to it. Our next guest is a man who 63 years ago accomplished something very few have ever done in the 150-year history of Major League Baseball. He went directly from high school to the big leagues. Jim Small. Jim, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you on Notre Dame Day.
Good to be here.
Go back to 1955. You're coming out of high school. You decide that you want to go play professional baseball. Why?
Well, I didn't want to go to college.
Why not? Why didn't you want to go to college?
I wasn't a really good student. But I grew up loving baseball. I had the opportunity to play in California high school, so I got a lot of exposure. And I had decisions to make. I had scholarship offers at Arizona and USC for baseball, but I wanted to go play, and I had a chance to go directly to big leagues, which may have been a mistake, probably was a mistake. Should have gone directly to the minors and played, but there was a baseball rule at that time, which I was bound to. It was the bonus rule, and it's probably baseball's biggest blunder. It lasted about 5 years. The successful ones were Koufax, Kaline, and Killebrew. They all made the Hall of Fame. I ended up in the Hall of Shame.
No, you didn't. Not at all. You know, it's interesting. You said that you feel like you sort of made a mistake not going through the minor league process. But yet you had to be good enough in somebody's eyes, the Detroit Tigers, oddly enough. Yeah. You had to be good enough in their eyes to say, I can do this. I can play at this. So what was your strength?
Well, I was the fastest man, one of the fastest men in the big leagues. I could hit, and I had a good arm. I had the tools. It was just a case of under the bonus rule, you were frozen to the big league roster, and for 2 years, and so I wasn't mentally prepared, and physically I wasn't prepared. I was a year away from being physically able to play at that level.
You know, it's interesting because even though we go back to 1955, quite a few years ago, we see a lot of young guys, particularly in basketball. You know, we have Notre Dame guys going on from college, but then we see a lot of high school kids, people like LeBron and Kobe that have gone. And you talk about the transition as an 18-year-old young boy going into a man's sport. Was the transition as difficult as it might seem?
Yeah, it was. Here was, I grew up under a curfew, 10, 11 o'clock at night. I end up in New York a week after I graduated from high school in Yankee Stadium with a bunch of characters, older guys.
Characters is an understatement for that group.
And yeah, it was intimidating, very intimidating. But the worst part of it was the hard feelings were that somebody like me took the spot on the roster of someone who maybe had a family and had to go back to the minor leagues. And so that's where maybe some of the hard feelings, and I was being paid well.
Well, that was my next question. All right. In this day and age of economics, we see the hundreds of millions of dollars. What was your first salary?
Well, I signed a contract, a 2-year contract, for $35,000.
Wow, at that time.
It was a lot of money.
That was big money.
Yeah, I turned down $55,000 in a Cadillac from Baltimore because I was 18 years old and I didn't like their hats.
Everybody has a reason why.
Right.
Well, you go from the Tigers to the Kansas City Athletics.
Yeah,
and then you were the first one to go American to go to Japan and play ball.
No, I got traded to Cincinnati from Kansas City. My last year I played was I made the minor league all-star team, and I got traded to Cincinnati. And I'm sitting there thinking, they got Frank Robinson, Kurt Flood, and a few other guys in the outfield that had all been in the all-star game. And I says, what am I doing here? So I had an opportunity to go to Japan for a lot of money. And the year before, Major League Baseball in Japan had signed a contract where there'd be no more rating. Right. And so I tried to buy my contract. I couldn't. And long story short, I was a month late getting to spring training. And 2 weeks later, I got rheumatic fever. And I was in bed from April to September that year. Because back in those days, they didn't know what to do. So that was really the end of it. I played 8 years and came to an abrupt halt.
It's amazing how it changes that way. And, of course, your connection to Notre Dame. Jim, your grandson, graduated here in 2008.
Yeah, he's one of the honor guard kids.
And your son, Jim, works here at the university. As a matter of fact, here we are at Jim's brainchild.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you so much for giving us a chance to be here. It's been great to hear the story, and it's amazing to see what happens when you go from high school right into the big leagues. And we'll go back now to the anchor desk where Justine, as she's standing by, talking with our next guest on the Notre Dame Day Video Hotline.
Thank you so much, Joe. We're so delighted to be joined now via our video hotline by Lindsay Meyer, a Notre Dame alumna who is part of the Silence Breakers, a group of courageous women who led the way in speaking out against sexual assaults and harassment. Because of their bravery, they were collectively named Time Magazine's 2017 Person of the Year. Lindsay, congrats on that tremendous honor, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Justine.
And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you studied here at Notre Dame, and what you're up to now?
Totally. I grew up in the Minneapolis suburbs, so I guess that made me one of the few students that ended up unfazed by Indiana's winters. I studied science business, and after I graduated in 2008, I moved to San Francisco 10 years ago. Today, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Batch. Batch is a next-gen retailer that is set up like your stylish friend's home. So we source products from online-only companies, local and global artists, designers, and makers. Everything is available to purchase. We run 5 collections a year called Batches, all in our 3,000 square foot historic firehouse. So if you ever find yourself in San Francisco, please drop by and visit.
Oh, definitely. And for the viewers who may not be as familiar with your story, can you talk about what specifically you were recognized for that earned you the honor of being named one of the Silence Breakers?
Absolutely. So in 2015, while raising money for investors or from investors for another venture that I had started before Batch, I met an investor who took interest in what I was working on at the time. Unfortunately, it turned out that his interests were beyond the strictly professional, and I found myself in several compromising situations with him. And what was worse was that it turned out that his predatory behavior was serial and dated back to the past decade. So a few of his victims started to organize in 2017, and I found myself faced with a choice of whether to go on record with my story. After some incredibly serious debate, I decided that it was the right thing to do. So I took my testimony to the New York Times, and in June 2017, it became a cover story. There was a ton of follow-up coverage that resulted in places like USA Today, Fortune, Glamour, and I also had the opportunity to do primetime TV with Megyn Kelly last summer. So all in all, a very crazy year for me.
No doubt, took a lot of courage to come forward. What did it mean to you to be recognized by Time Magazine for those efforts?
You know, being recognized in Time's Person of the Year issue is seen by many as an honor, although Time is really careful to never frame it that way. I sort of think of it as the resume enhancer that I never fathomed of receiving. But really, it's only recently that I've come to fully grasp the entirety of emotions that have been built up over the last year. And in fact, last week, the New York Times was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Public Service and Journalism. And I really found myself coming more fully into the realization that my personal story of being harassed as a young female entrepreneur in Silicon Valley has really forever altered the arc of history. You know, as one of the women whose life was held in this incredibly delicate balance for weeks, days, hours, and seconds when there were so many risks, ostracism, online trolling, character attacks, being sued, and of course all of the financial responsibilities that would come along with that were most acute. I'm finally, about a year later, finding the opportunity to really breathe again. And so, you know, people, of course, line up now to ask how I found the bravery to take my story public in June 2017 when so many few others had been willing to do something like that. And at the time, Harvey Weinstein was still at the helm of his media conglomerate. Men in politics and fine dining, broadcasting, arts, and culture, they still had their high places. And in a recent talk, I characterized my decision to go on record with the New York Times as calculated and strategic because I really wanted to interface with the news organizations of the highest journalistic caliber and hopefully the maximal potential impact. So for me, just last week, watching the team at the New York Times receive journalism's highest honor, the Pulitzer Prize, very much validated my instinct to go big, take on the risks, and really elevate the conversation from what was at the time more of a tech-focused misogyny problem to something that others around the world would emulate. And so that to me is really much more meaningful, I think, than any sort of public accolade and something that I'm still shocked by how widespread the impact has been.
Lindsay, your story is truly inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us here on Notre Dame Day. We appreciate it. Coming up, we're going to sit down with the executive director of the Notre Dame Alumni Association. That's next after this quick break. We're back after this.
Notre Dame is a place where differences of culture and religion and convictions can coexist with friendship and civility and even love.
We've been entrusted with Notre Dame to pass it on to the next generation in a way that will influence the world for another 175 years.
Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. I'm Jack Nolan, and I'm pleased to be joined now by the Executive Director of the Notre Dame Alumni Association, Dolly Duffy. Thank you for spending some time with us here today. Now, as a member of the class of 1984, you celebrated with everybody Notre Dame's 175th anniversary, but now the Alumni Association has a big anniversary to celebrate this year.
Yeah, it's great to be able to celebrate two back-to-back. It's on June 23rd of this year, we'll celebrate 150 years as an alumni association. So it didn't take long.
And this is, full disclosure, I'm proud that I'm a Missouri grad. There's a few of us here on campus, but I have never been around, and I grew up in Boston, in the center of the Ivy League. I have never been around an alumni network as active or as strong, and I've spoken to many of the clubs, as Notre Dame's. In fact, I was in Oslo, Norway about 10 years ago on a bus driving through the center of the city, and there was a shop front that said, Notre Dame Alumni Association of Oslo. You are everywhere.
Absolutely. We just had our leadership conference just this last week, and we had all of our leaders from all over the world, and we had one that had recently started pulling together the 3 alums in Macedonia. And he was very excited because they were going to have another one for the summer. And so he said they're going to have a 33% increase in their membership.
Well, I'm sure you promised him Brian Kelly as their first speaker.
Absolutely.
At their first meeting.
And Brian, I said I'd come too.
Yeah, and Brian will be delighted to hear about that. I'm sure about that. What special activities do you have scheduled as an association to celebrate 150 years?
You know, we've really been focused on it, and we are doing something called the re-envisioning of the Alumni Association. And there are a number of things that come out of that. The ones that come to mind, I'd say, is for the first time ever, we're going to have a young alumni board that we're kicking off in July. That'll give us a really great chance to get the pulse of our young alumni. And what they've said to us is, we want more. Kind of to everyone's surprise. We also have a new storytelling platform called We Are ND that launches every Monday a story, every Monday a new story. And the great part about that is that it's really the whole force for good. It gives us a chance to tell some amazing stories.
You just touched on the new club in Macedonia. How fast are you continuing to grow? How many new clubs do you form each year?
We don't form a lot because we already have every bit of the country and the world allocated into a club. So we currently have 270 clubs. 220 of them are domestic and the rest are international.
Now, the Alumni Association has always been open to membership for non-alumni, but they've never been able to hold leadership positions in those clubs before, and that's something that you're trying to change.
So they can lead the clubs, but they haven't been able to sit on our board. And if you know anything about the Alumni Association, about 3 years ago, we changed our tagline that says Alumni and Friends so that we can embrace someone just like you.
And what kind of energy? Because, I mean, again, the Dallas-Fort Worth clubs have very active members, and you're right, I misspoke, who were like the vice president of, I think, the Dallas club, not a Notre Dame graduate. What kind of energy do they bring, a perspective do they bring to your board now that you're allowing them to be part of it?
I would say that they bring a huge amount of energy, and it just dovetails perfectly in with our alumni that have been so active in running these clubs for 150 years.
You know, one of the biggest times of year is reunion weeks, alumni reunion weeks, and they're coming up. And boy, you guys do it right.
Thank you.
You've got the shuttles everywhere. You've got the events for all of the various classes. So if there is an alumnus who hasn't come to an alumni reunion weekend yet, why should they? What will they experience?
Oh, I can't even tell them how much they're missing out. Because you think when you leave, you know a lot of your classmates, but this many years later, you can meet so many people who can enrich your lives. We have so much fun. There's academic, there's social, there's all kinds of things for every class.
How, when you talk to the various classes, how do their attitudes and emotions change as they come back 10 years out, 20 years out, and then I'll jump to the end, 50 years out? 60 years out.
Well, there is nothing like watching the 50-year class come together. That's a magical moment. But one of the great things is we talk about the fact that our young alums are telling us they want more. One of the great parts about that is for the last 5 consecutive years, each class year over year has broken the record for the 5-year coming back to reunion. We had over 400 members of that class come back last year.
Dolly, you are so engaged. Every major Notre Dame event that I show up at, regardless of where it is around the country, you inevitably are always there. So thank you for your efforts and enthusiasm.
I'm thrilled to do it. Thanks.
Thank you. And now we need to send it on back to the Hiller family midfield set. That is where Joe Theismann continues to be ensconced, and he has a very special guest, the guy who's been here for 3 decades, Notre Dame's men's lacrosse coach. Joe?
Jack, thanks so much. You're right. I'm having an opportunity now to sit down with Kevin Kerrigan, who has been here for 3 decades as the lacrosse coach at the University of Notre Dame. Kev, great to see you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for spending some time with us. The Kerrigans have a bit of a history here at Notre Dame. I work with Tim, your brother, of course, your dad, here as athletic director for a number of years. And you've been here since '88.
Yeah. Great time to arrive on campus.
I know it was. What's the key to longevity in coaching?
Gosh, man,
or do we have enough time to go through it? I'm not sure.
I think as much as anything is you just got to keep the passion, keep loving what you're doing. But it's a pretty easy thing to do because you're involved with these kids, and they don't get any older, Joe. I get older, they don't get any older. They're still the same 18 to 22-year-olds every year, and so it keeps it fresh and it keeps it fun, and you get to be such a wonderful part of people's lives.
How has the game evolved over the period of time that you've been coaching?
It's changed a lot, It
In what way?
Has. Well, the technology itself, just the sticks and all that, have changed the game a lot, and they've changed it into more of an offensive game, I think, and changed some of the things defensively that you have to do. It's really a much more. Probably like football to you when you look back on what football was like 30, 40 years ago, and now with the proliferation of all the coaches and everything else, the complexity of it all is much higher level. The game itself stays the same, but the complexity of what's going on, I think, behind the scenes is a lot different.
What's one of the big major changes that you've noticed? One of the really impactful ones?
Well, I think just the idea that everybody handles the ball so well, right? The defensemen, the midfielders, the attackmen, everybody can handle the ball and be an offensive player in a sense. And so it's gotten there's some specialization and all that in positions, but everybody is a little bit more fluid within the game. So it's I think that's probably as big as anything.
You have at Notre Dame lacrosse, you have a thing called the 3 C's.
Yeah.
What are they?
It's just kind of the pillars that we talk about with our kids all the time. It stands for character, culture, and community. And it's really kind of an acknowledgement by us that our program is not just about competing. And obviously it is, you have to compete, and you have to compete at a high level, because if you want to get the most out of everybody and they want to get the most out of the experience, the competitive side of it has to be in place. But it's not just about that. It's about developing men. I think as a college coach, you really can't look at your success on a short time period. You have to really look at the success that you have on a 25-year time period, because if the people that you're coaching don't become good men, good fathers, good parents, good members of their communities, then you haven't done the job that you had an opportunity to do.
What a great approach. Also, they just don't have the experience of playing here in the United States. You have your foreign trip coming up. You're on your way to Spain. First of all, how many foreign trips have you made?
I think this makes 6 or 7.
Wow. And now you've got this new foreign trip coming up.
Yeah, once every 4 years, the NCAA allows you to take a foreign trip, and so we've tried to take advantage of it. It's true. Again, our goal with our guys is to provide the best experience that we can provide in college. The best in college athletics is really our goal. And so we think that opportunity to play all over the country, to play all over the world is really a unique thing that we can provide them, and what an awesome trip. I mean, our last trip was to Italy. We're going to Barcelona and Madrid this time, and
I just want to come back and play lacrosse. Yeah. Just for the trip.
Yeah, well, 10 days with your best friends in a foreign country, that doesn't sound like a bad deal, does it?
Oh no, I'd love to do it. Hey, thanks so much, Coach. Great to see you. Thank you. And I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with Kevin. And now we will join Vic Lombardi, who is in a very envious position over at the Notre Dame golf practice facility. I hate you, Vic. I hate you.
All right, here with new men's golf coach, John Hendrigan, who's been on board, since July, Coach?
Correct, yeah. I've just started first year.
All right, so the question's always asked. You came from Florida. How difficult is it to coach golf, to play golf, to succeed at golf in South Bend, Indiana?
It's obviously a challenge, there's no doubt, but fortunately we've had some great places to go and practice this spring, so we're lucky there. A lot of great alums here that take care of us at some great courses. Lucky enough to go to Augusta National this year with one of our alums, and Seminole, top 10 course in the country. So we get to go to some good spots.
See, that's the beauty of Notre Dame, John. The courses will come to you thanks to the benefactors in this wonderful family.
Yeah, you got that right. We're lucky. The Notre Dame brand's pretty special.
And you got your assistant coach here, Scott Gupp. He played on tour?
Yeah, he played on tour for 20 years. Phenomenal to have a guy like that, his experience. He's played in the Masters. He was second at the Players one year to Freddie Couples when Freddie Couples won. And his interaction with the guys on our team is truly special. He's one of the best to have and a great recruiter, so we're lucky to have him here at Notre Dame.
A lot goes into building a program. We're going to walk around and show you the facility here. We're right across the street from campus at Warren, and of course this course is hosting the U.S. Senior Open next week.
Correct, yeah. The convenience of this place is phenomenal. That's one of our big recruiting tools for sure. You're not spending time in a car driving back and forth, and hosting the U.S. Open, Senior Open, obviously the course is a pretty special place to host a major event.
Tell us about this room. What do we have here? Big putting green here. I see over there, Coach, 1944 national champions, and that team was coached by a priest.
Yeah,
so perhaps you might want to consider turning that to a man of the cloth.
Yeah, I guess I need another profession, right, to help myself out there at the future championship. But, yeah, we spend a lot of time here during the week when it's cold outside, a lot of chipping and putting. And like I said, on the weekends, we're on the road pretty much every weekend competing or playing a course down south.
This is what you need to do in a cold weather climate as we continue our tour of the golf facility. Now you have the outdoor venue, and beautiful. The sun is out, thankfully. I know it's been a harsh winter here in South Bend, but this is where you guys spend a lot of your time hitting range ball after range ball, correct?
We do, yeah. When the snow's on the ground in the wintertime, we spend a lot of time in here. Obviously, it's heated, so the guys can hit balls throughout the winter. It's great. You can see ball flights. You're not hitting into a net. And as you can see, we're making a lot of changes here as well.
Yeah, they're improving the driving range in hopes of when the senior tour players come out here, they'll get a good look at a professional environment. This is beautiful as it is. What changes are you making?
Yeah, correct. We're adding a lot of new target greens out there. As you can see, 3 new target greens. We got a new tee that we're adding there, a couple more practice greens that are going to be going in, expanding that tee more than half the size. So it's going to be a great facility, there's no doubt.
I'm no fool. I got a golf coach here. Can you just look at my swing and evaluate it?
There's no doubt. Let's hear some shots.
Please, by all means.
All right, let's see what you got.
All right. Graphite shaft, mind you, because I'm old.
Yeah, that's what you need right now.
All right,
let's see this setup here. Looking pretty good. Let's see what you got.
Oh, that's...
You need a little mulligan on that one. A little practice swing. Let's see what you got. There you go. That's better. It looks like you've been in the winter. You've been inside all winter too, then.
Not good enough.
No? All right.
That's my swing right there.
We got a little fade going on today.
How do I get it more right to left?
That grip's a little weak right
grip?
now. Yeah, let's make that a little stronger.
So more like this?
Yeah, this hand a little bit going more this way, underneath.
Like this?
Yeah, make it a little stronger. Get rid of that fade.
No, it still fades.
Still fades. We got more work to do.
I need a lot more help than Coach Handrigan over here, but thanks for the tour, my friend.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very
have
much.
A great day.
Good things in store for Coach and the golf team here. Let's go to Michael Rodeo.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. We are here in the 50-yard line set, and I am here with a very special guest who represents one of the most important cornerstone elements of the University of Notre Dame, and that is our athletics department. And we are here with Brant Ust, who is an assistant athletic director. Is that right?
Correct.
And and what do you do on campus besides your assistant athletic directing?
So I serve as an assistant athletics director for our student-athlete alumni relations, which is also kind of a synonym for being our Monogram Club executive director.
Monogram Club. Okay.
And our Monogram Club is comprised of over 8,000 Monogram winners.
Awesome.
Former student-athletes, student trainers, managers, cheerleaders, video technicians, and honorary Monogram recipients.
So it's a big group.
It is a big group, a little niche of the overall Notre Dame family and Notre Dame alumni group, and it's our job and our role to keep them engaged, and through their support, we're able to provide a lot of initiatives and programs to the current student athletes in the athletics department.
Awesome. So I imagine you're pretty busy. Do you guys organize any events or benefits that keep you running around campus?
Sure. Along with my wonderful staff, we look during the fall and spring and winter to organize a lot of receptions and events and welcoming back Monogram Club members and their families and guests. We've had a busy last month or so, traveling all of our teams that were in contention for national championships.
Good problem
and
to have.
hosting regional events on the road with them. But most importantly, we were able to provide a lot of funding and support to a lot of the current initiatives. It's kind of a way in which our membership wants to provide and make the current student athlete experience even better than it was for them. And through funding our Brennan Boland Reilly Scholarship for the sons and daughters of Monogram winners who attend Notre Dame, our Mike Heaton Fund, our catastrophic relief fund for those of our family facing troubling times or hard times, we're able to provide some support, kind of be that teammate for life.
And paying it forward.
Absolutely.
So obviously athletics is a huge part of Notre Dame culture. Talk about what it's like to have individuals from various athletic backgrounds. You have your football players, your golfers, and baseball players like you working together in the Monogram Club.
Sure. A great example is our board of directors, about 22 or so right now, and they represent different eras of Notre Dame athletics, different sports, genders obviously, and really from an international makeup. And they serve as that kind of representation of our membership at large. And it's wonderful working with them and trying to promote the student athlete in Notre Dame athletics and university's mission as well. And our board is comprised of some really special people that are some of Notre Dame's best and brightest.
Absolutely. So why is it important to have an organization like the Monogram Club keeping former athletes and those involved in the athletics program engaged and connected?
Sure, it's a way in which we build community.
Mm-hmm.
We celebrate legacy, and we want to provide service. Service to the current student-athlete experience, but also service to our alum and our members,
Sure.
so that they will always remain connected. Notre Dame is a 40 or a lifetime commitment, not just when you're 4 years here,
Right.
and we kind of embody that, and it motivates us.
Absolutely. So where can people go to find out about the Monogram Club and the events it hosts?
Sure, UND.com.
Right.
You can always find information about the Monogram Club there, but also always stop by. We always want to welcome Monogram winners and their families back to campus, be it in the fall or throughout the summer, and it's always great to have our Monogram winners back here.
So I have a personal question for you. You played sports here at Notre Dame, right?
Correct.
And I don't want to date you or anything, but in terms of which sport do you play for?
I was a baseball player here
Awesome.
at Notre Dame.
What position?
I was a shortstop primarily.
Very
here.
cool.
Had a great experience. Was proud to wear Notre Dame across my chest and represent Notre Dame on the diamond, and that has stayed with me in this role as the executive director of the Monogram Club, and it stayed with a lot of our members as well too.
It. Yeah. How long have you been here in your current role?
This will be my 4th year
Wow.
back here at Notre Dame,
Congratulations.
and thank you. And it's been great to be involved with this and wonderful initiatives like ND Day that really are a great chance to showcase and show off this wonderful university and community.
Absolutely. So I know this is going to be tough, but do you have any real highlights from the past couple years?
Oh,
if you can give
gosh.
me one.
I don't know. I'd say every time I went out there and with my teammates, my brothers who were still good friends now, and we had Notre Dame across our chest, and I think it stood for a lot more than what we just accomplished on the diamond. I think that people understood and respected the university that we fought hard for, and the academics and all of that. So that stays with me and has continued to today.
Awesome. Thank you, Brant. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And now I'm going to throw it to my classmate at the anchor desk, Justine Ward. Justine?
Hey, go 2012. Thank you. Our next guest is a Notre Dame alumna who at the age of 27 adopted her son. As if that isn't enough, she did so while serving as a Peace Corps volunteer in rural Rwanda. We're joined now on the Notre Dame video hotline by Claire Brosnahan. Hi, Claire. And I want to say I read your story and I was so touched by it. For everybody watching, though, let's begin at the beginning here for you and as it relates to adopting your son. But it started all with your involvement in the Peace Corps. Why did you join to begin with?
Yeah, I think it came down to really having a sense of being given a lot in life and a deep sense of wanting to give back because of that. So making sure that everyone lives a life of dignity, no matter what situation they're born into or what country they're born into. You know, I've never worried about having a roof over my head or where my next meal would come from or having to forgo medical care because I couldn't afford it. I got a college education, a Notre Dame college education nonetheless, and I was really motivated by the sense of to whom much is given, much is expected, wanting to give back because of that.
What a beautiful message. And your trip took an unexpected turn when you met a little boy named Francois. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I was placed in a convent, actually, with 8 nuns as my Peace Corps site. And on my very first evening at the site, this little tiny 3-year-old boy, Francois de Sisi, wandered into my room, and we just started to play there while the nuns were in Vespers. And there was just this instant connection. I knew from the very first day that I met him that I wanted to be his mom.
Oh, that is so sweet. These photos are so touching. So how did your parents and friends respond when you told them you were adopting a little boy?
Yeah, mostly the response was like, "You're crazy, don't do this." At the time, I was just 22 and I was about a year out of college. So I didn't have a steady job. I was making a Peace Corps volunteer stipend. I didn't know what I would be doing after Peace Corps. I'm not married. I was 1,000 miles away from my family. There were kind of a million good reasons why I shouldn't do it, which a lot of people made pretty clear. But at the bottom of my heart, I just knew that it was right and I had to find a way to make it work.
And you faced a few obstacles while adopting Francois. He had some health issues. You also had some legal obstacles. How did you overcome those challenges?
A lot of faith. We definitely had a lot of challenges. So a few years after I met him, I was working here in Rwanda still. After my service, I got a job with an international development organization. And in 2015, his behavior started to change a little bit. And the nuns and I weren't sure what exactly was going on. And so we had an MRI done, and they found out that he had brain lesions. And beyond that, we couldn't really get an answer of what was causing the brain lesions. There's only a handful of neurologists here in Rwanda. And we got a really big range of diagnoses, from rare diseases to leukemia to having a congenital brain defect, and a really wide range of prognoses as well. So one doctor told me that he had only months to live, and others said that he would live a normal life. The Rwandan hospitals didn't have the tests that we would need to see what the actual diagnosis was, like what was causing the brain lesions. And it was just a really, really difficult time, not knowing what was causing the brain lesions, and just so much uncertainty about what to do. Like, the nuns really didn't know, should we take him out of school and fly him to Disneyland and really live every day like it's his last day because, there was this doctor that told us he had months to live, or, is everything going to be fine and he's going to live a normal life? Like, we just didn't know what was going to happen. So we made a decision to fly him to Nairobi, Kenya, where they have more medical options there. And they had the tests that we would need to determine what the actual diagnosis was. We located a pediatric neurologist who is amazing in Kenya, and we discovered that his brain lesions were caused by parasites, which was really treatable. So after a few months of medication, the treatment was successful. And then it was during that time that I really pursued the adoption. Mm-hmm. So I worked with a lawyer here in Rwanda to start the adoption process. And it's quite difficult in Rwanda to be a foreigner who adopts a Rwandan child. And there was a lot of paper gathering there, a lot of work with my lawyer to make sure everything was in place. But I was, I think, the first international parent to adopt a Rwandan child since 2009. Just the legal challenges were quite difficult. But then in 2016, we went to a court here in Rwanda with my lawyer, and it was successful, and we became a family. So, all those struggles with the medical issues and the long adoption process all paid off, and we're living here in Rwanda still together as a family today, coming up on our 2 years as a family.
Claire, so happy he is safe and sound with you. We wish you and Francois all the best. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to check in now at the Social Media Center to see where the votes stand. We'll be back shortly to resume our broadcast.
Hey, thanks so much, guys. Amazing story there. Just to give you a quick update on our leaderboards, Residence Halls in particular, you can see St. Ed's Hall is way out front. However, look at those traditional rivalries and where those line up right now. Alumni, and I've been saying this for 5 years now, fifth Notre Dame Day. I'm a Dillon man. Every year, Dillon has lost out to alumni. That might happen again this year unless the men of Dillon start showing up. They have 710 votes to alumni's 1,100. It's starting to get out of hand, men of Dillon, so now is the time. Make that minimum $10 gift. Cast your 5 votes. Stanford also way in front of Keenan Hall. So we're going to see where this ends up. We're going to see a lot of action at the end of the day. 20,000 gifts now, thanks to all of you out there that have made Notre Dame Day the biggest event of its kind in higher education. Sarah, another big hour coming up next hour, right?
Yes, we have a great hour coming up. We have Deanna Gump, Todd Rundgren, and Ted Mandel.
Oh, wow.
They have a special announcement, so stay tuned for that.
Okay.
I'm intrigued myself
to
see what that's going to be. And then, of course, Eduardo Luna, Engineering Without Borders.
That's a great program.
And Juan Pablo Montufar. And we were also going to let the folks from this area know that tickets for Hamilton are available, and you can go right to the DeBartolo Performing Arts Center and pick those up.
That's going to be an incredible show. 7 o'clock tonight, Chloe Agnew and the cast of Hamilton. You don't want to miss it, especially if you saw Chloe last night. And the cast of Hamilton did such an amazing job last year on Notre Dame Day. Tickets are on sale. They're free to the public right now at the DeBartolo Performing Arts Center. We'll come back right at the beginning of next hour. Thanks so much for hanging with us here. Notre Dame Day 2018. Back after this.
My name's Logan Wishart. I'm a theology major, studying German and poverty studies as well. I'm from a small town called DeLand, Florida, outside of Daytona Beach. My father is a land surveyor. My mother didn't get the chance to graduate high school. By the time the Great Recession came in 2008, the Florida building industry was decimated. After that, my dad went back and forth at all kinds of different surveying positions, working for half the hours and half the pay. I realized that if I wanted to go to college and I wanted to get kind of my feet under me, it was on me. And I started looking into being a Catholic man and looking into Catholic schools so that I could study theology. Notre Dame, of course, is the best theology program that speaks English in the entire world and also meets financial need, and it was the perfect fit. So getting into Notre Dame was the first step. But there's a big difference between being a cog in a machine and one of 12,000 working and studying, and somebody who makes a home of the place where he lives. There are students on campus who receive so much financial need that they feel like they're greedy if they ask for any more, but they don't have the money to live a Notre Dame experience. For me, that meant that I shied away from rock climbing club and the wrestling team, and I was hesitant to buy a jacket other than the 40-year-old jacket that my grandfather had given me that wasn't waterproof. But then the Fighting Irish Initiative comes in and they offer funds and they say, here, now you can make Notre Dame your home.